Now, that's what it is.
I don't know what my expectations are. I'm just here because I'm really excited to see something awesome being done with the Village Deli after we saw it. As a family, we were pretty sad. So we're like, oh, somebody is getting some people together to make it better. Let's join in and see what we can do. So let's not in.
I'm here basically because of the last meeting. I'm really excited about the prospect of a co-op opportunity here in town, bringing all the people who live together in a different way, because you see everybody every day, but you don't really know them. You don't know their stories or anything like that. And I think I'm just interested in building community. And what I took away from the last meeting was that there is definitely a need and just a beautiful possibility of so much to come out of things if we can all work together. Like there's potential. Sometimes you start a project and you think, how is this going to happen? But I can see it. I can see this town with the co-op, and that's why I'm here, because like the potential of what could happen. I'm just really excited about that.
And for the record, you're Flora.
And I'm Flora. I've been spamming all of you on Facebook with all the meeting stuff. In the Parks and Recreation.
Don't ever get started for being awesome.
I'm Deborah, and I was really excited the first meeting just to see how many people showed up and how many people that I didn't know that I've never seen before that live in Bakersfield. And I'm really excited about doing something like some kind of community space. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be. It could be a store, could be anything that sort of draws the community together and makes Bakersfield have more of a vibrant downtown area. So that's what my expectations are.
And you kind of blended that in together.
I'm Sue Ann. I'm actually here for very similar reasons. I like the community, you know, coming together to do something great. And I don't know for all that long, but I like that so many people do come out to make this community better. So I'm just here to see the possibilities.
I think I agree with what everybody says. I'm Sharon. I think there's different groups in town doing different things, and wouldn't it be great if we had something that was sort of for all of the community? I'm a little anxious about this. It seems more than what I initially, no, I shouldn't say anxious. I do like challenges, but we've got a road ahead of us, but it's really nice to see the positive energy in this group. I'm amazed at the number of females within this group. I don't know if we've scared others away. Thank you, John.
I'm Susan. I have not been to the last 2 meetings. My husband came to the previous meeting. Why I'm here is about a week before Brenda had posted about this. Andy and I were driving by the store and thought it was so great. It's like 7 to 10 families to get together and buy the store and make it a market or a cafe, whatever. Just that was very sad to see it empty. So here we are.
Did you check into it?
It'll be small.
Let's start somewhere. Anybody?
I'm Leilani. Yeah, I guess I'm somewhat new to town. I thought that this was a really good opportunity to get to know my community and fellow community members. I was really excited to see the energy and the excitement with so many people. And expectations wise, I think I'm excited to see people stay motivated, even though, as Sharon said, we have a long road ahead of us. I think there's a lot of challenges to come to overcome, but I think as long as there's still enthusiasm that we all maintain. And I think it's important that we remember that we're becoming an agency for the community as well. So think about that.
We're just looking at coins, see what-
She wanted me to speak for us. I'm Laura, and I'm gonna mirror what everybody said. I'm excited about the possibility of having a community center that was lost, the void of the store. We're also new to the community, but we're really excited. We love the community and we want to be able to be part of the community.
This is Maura, I'm Beth. I still feel new to the community. We've been here 3.5 years, so not that new, but new as it goes in this town. And yeah, I'm totally. And we felt like something like this was missing since we got here 3.5 years ago. But yeah, I'm really excited to see the energy here, and like Laura said, just somewhere that feels like a community space. Whether, I know we're all excited to do something with the store that's empty now, and I'm here for that 100%. But I also think that the energy that's here, and was here at the first meeting, that whether or not it happens to be the store building, I think that something will come of this.
Just meet every month for fun.
Yeah. Nah, for you guys.
Ben, what's taking for last?
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Ben Doyle. I'm the president of the Preservation Trust of Vermont. I never have any expectation that anybody knows what that means, but we're a 40-year-old nonprofit organization that's supported or that's dedicated to building community through the preservation of historic buildings and community gathering spaces. And I'm excited to be here just to hear more about what you're up to think with you about how we might be helpful. And general stores are kind of our bag right now. Like that's kind of what we do. A lot of times we work with communities where a store has closed or is in danger of closing, and work with community groups to form a nonprofit or cooperative in some cases to help purchase, rehab a building, and then operate it as a general store. So right now, we've recently worked with Albany Community Trust, East Calais General Store, we're working with Elmore. Historically, we've worked with Putney and Barnard. Really, I've been in the position a year, but my predecessor was there for 40 years and worked with a lot of general stores. And so happy to just really listen and be a resource if we can be, and think with you about the path ahead. I think it is a long one, but there, the truth is there's lots of people. This is a model that works, right? Like people have done it, and Bakersfield is like a fantastic town. It's a fantastic community with a lot of beautiful assets and clearly interested people. So we're really excited if there's a way that we can help.
Thank you. Yes, I want to get the folks on Zoom. We'll start up in the corner there. Jamie, why don't you unmute and let us know who you are and why you're here tonight.
I'm Jamie Morby. I live in Calais, born and raised, been here my whole life. I recently was involved and on the founding board of directors of the Maple Corner Community Store, which is one store in Calais that recently went up for sale, and a community group banded together and bought it and runs it sort of as a co-op, more or less. And then I'm also on the advisory board of the East Calais Community Trust, which is in the process of doing the same thing over 3 miles away on the other side of Calais. And I just love little towns taking over their stores. I think sort of the model of mom and pop corner store in small town Vermont is really hard these days, and communities stepping in and making it happen collectively is a really, really powerful model. So I'm just here to see what you all are doing. It's awesome to see you have such a big group. I think early meetings for either store in Calais didn't come close to the number you have in the room right now, which is great. And happy to be, give insights on the decisions we made and the reasons for those, and answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, Christina.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I have a horrible headache from work today, and so I decided to stay home. We're kind of like with everybody else, like we want to see something great in our little town and a great place to stop for, you know, a quick need of, hey, we need bread, we need milk, or maybe we want to pick up, you know, an easy dinner, or, you know, a place to go hang out with other people from the community, even if it is just for 5 minutes, you walk in and say, hey, how are you doing? So, you know, our little town needs it. Otherwise, we're driving a good 10 miles to a grocery store. So, plus there's a lot of traffic in the summer. So that could be good. That could be really good for the town, is, or, you know, to have that stop again.
Thank you so much. G7, think, to unmute, introduce yourself. And that's okay if you want to stay back in the stealth mode. That's quite all right. At some point in time, we'd love to know who is with us. And we got Rosalie just came in. Hi. We asked people 2 things. One is, what did you take away from either of the meetings that we've done, and what are your expectations for tonight?
Well, I've lived here for 65 years. And long further than a lot of the elderly people that are here, and I think we need something in the community. I've been working myself trying to do things in the community for at least 23 years, which has been successful. But I think, like she was mentioning, it's not home if it's not a homemade thing. You know, you stop at the Jolly down here. I mean, I used to own the house right next to it, and way back when it used to be a house. And it was nice because it was a place for people to gather, have a coffee, grab a muffin or something. It's not the same. A Jolly store isn't the same. It's just different, and I'd like to see something more personal. I think that's where I want to use, that's actually owned by people in the town. That's, yeah, it's, Jolly's got stores everywhere. You know, and they're trying to put in things that aren't really selling. I don't care what they say. The grinders or whatever. And I think just in Bakersfield, it's nice to have something, like I said, homey and more personal, I think. And having a place where you can get fresh vegetables, like we talked about in the very beginning, I think is very important. I own a lot of land here in town, too much. And I don't know, I see a purpose for places where maybe I could move some of my vegetables and fruits and different things, not having to drive to Enosburg or have to go to St. Albans just to get, I don't know, a couple tomatoes or, you know, some cucumbers, just something close by. And to me, that's really important. I live 6 miles out of town, and I got to drive another 6 just to go get some milk unless I come down to the Jolly. And it's just, we need something here. As far as the building over here, I don't know how I feel about it 100% because I grew up seeing it through the years. It'd be nice to be able to save it and turn it into something. I just hope that we can afford it, and that we can make a go of it. I think that's to me, that's important. And seeing people here supporting, you know, it all, I think it's, you know, Sharon's been here a long time.
Just 35, not.
What? Okay, just 35 years. But I see the town dividing because there isn't a place to pull people together.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, I missed the point.
No,
That's what I was feeling.
Chad made it happen.
Yeah.
Connection.
Yes. And it's not just the youth, it's the elderly people that are gonna be retiring, and what are they gonna do? You know, some of them aren't gonna be able to drive. We are beginning to be a senior town. I don't care. There's a lot of us. Sorry, Brenda.
Our name were fresh.
Yeah, I'd like to say, it's a good mix here. We have new folks and we have.
Yes.
folks that if you add it up to two decades, you probably get a couple hundred. years. It's good. I'm gonna jump the schedule just a little bit because I'd like to have John give us a shakedown of what went last week. We've got some notes. I don't know if we'll get that deep into it. After that, I do want to probably have Ben talk to us before we get into the not-for-profit thing. I posted up a state website on it, so I want to understand what some of the options are as a nonprofit. Should we do that first? Is that something we should step into? So those are some of the questions that I know. John, go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, did everyone see and or get the because some of these are going to look small on the screen. You have the actual numbers here. If we were to have to take out some kind of,
We can see.
you can see it. Yeah, I'm going to scroll up and put this together for you guys. Okay, so generally the store is an overall. It's obviously at 31 Main Street, North Main Street. It was built in 1850. It is approximately 3,400 feet, 3,450 feet on a almost a third of an acre lot. They're asking currently, according to the website, $240,000 for the building. It is a mix of, the heating is a LP gas and an oil mix. And currently, according to our town, the tax rate for a business is 2.3035% on whatever they determine the value of said business. Fortunately, on October 6th, we had an opportunity to go through the building. Unfortunately, on October 6th, unknown to us, they decided to limit the amount of people able to walk the building to 3. We took an electrician in because we felt it was important. Myself, who was heading up the group, and someone who has general contract, used to swinging a hammer a lot and doing things for eyes. Wasn't that we were trying to exclude anyone. We would have wanted everyone to go through that store. However, as it was explained to us, there is property in the store from someone who is still leasing that space all the way through to either May, if you talk to one person, or August of 2022, which means potentially this store is not even available for purchase, but they'll work something out if we decide to buy. We were not allowed to take any pictures inside the building. Sorry, we tried. We were told no pictures on the first floor. They supplied stock photos of the individual who rented the building 5 years ago. I have those included in here. So you have no fresh pictures of inside the building. And by the way, for us who went through the building, there was no space. As you see, I'm in a sling. I couldn't turn left and right. There was little aisles barely fitting this big buttocks through it, trying to shimmy down of rows and rows of personal items all over the place. What we saw inside the building, and we tried to be aware of, and we could pick out, there was dry rot in the building. It is a building from 1850. You've got to be realistic. This building is not, a brand new building. It has dry rot in it. It has electrical issues with it. It has safety issues with it. The electrical, to delve into the electrical real quick, they have 200 amp breaker boxes with 100 amp services, which isn't a big deal. It's oversized for what's actually being delivered to it, but it also has 2 to 3 different types of electric going through it, including 1850 knob and tube, which you may not know, but it's a very old ceramic system with wires that are exposed to make connections. Currently, there is a tenant, both in the store, as I said, who has this rented out, and on the second floor. There is water damage on almost all of the floors on the first floor. Anywhere that they had stoves, refrigerators, or cooling chillers, when you look up, or coolers, when you look up, the whole floor is stained and/or damaged. In certain sections, looks moldy and/or some dry rot. Did not bring a screwdriver to poke at it. I don't want to damage the guy's building, but it does look in a lot of areas there's concerns. And there are a heck of a lot of different animals living down, at least in the basement area. We had to climb through all kinds of stuff that was not pleasant, including residue from the animals. There are holes at the foundation, right where they burrowed underneath and come into, because the floor is a sand dirt floor that has just regular wood laying on top of it, which is all rotten and damaged by water. Next slide, please. We're going to go to the financials. If you scroll down, hey, Brian. Brian was with me. Brian was the third individual. The financial side of the house, if you go to the next slide, and hopefully have the handout to help. There are two types of loans as a business, whether we're a nonprofit, whether we are just a community of people who are throwing money at this and getting some grants. It doesn't matter. Secured loans and unsecured loans, it's the same no matter where we are in the business. Secured means we're putting up our properties and or our equity value, money in the bank to leverage against the monies we borrow that we cannot get through grants. There are more preferential rates or preferable rates that range between 4 and 6%. If you go to the unsecured loan, it is what it says. We're not putting anything up against the note. It is worse rate. It's 7 to 10% as an unsecured loan. Both loans require 20% down. No matter what it is, it doesn't matter if we get 90% of the money and we have to take a loan. And that's why I did like ridiculous numbers down into 50,000 so people understood and could see what we would need. So if we needed, let's just say $60,000 because the rest we were fortunate enough to get grants on, we would have to, or 75,000, we would have to supply $15,000 in cash to secure the loan because we have to lay 20% down. They said there's no real PMI like when you get a house, according to the banks I spoke to. What I also have in this paperwork is generally at an interest rate, what the interest rate would be, how much the monthly payment would be, how much the insurance would be. I called Whole Insurance, Sandy, over in Enosburg, trying to keep us as local as possible. They actually insured the building before. So they have an idea, and it's truly an estimate. We could change numbers up and down, but it's $625 a month for insurance, for liability and any kind of damages. Water, I contacted, water is supplied by the town of Vermont. It is town water. There are 2 services there. That's just rounded up $54 a month. Electric, I actually called down to Green Mountain Power because they're the ones who supply power to the building because they're right where the cutoff is from Enosburg. And Green Mountain Power told me what historically, when the building was open in 2019-ish timeframe, what they were paying for power in the building, which was nearly $1,700 a month for the coolers and everything they used. And of course, our town taxes that we have to collect monthly. So all this rolled up, choose any amount you want. I gave you a total monthly payment as it would be so that you can look. There are certain factors not in here. Heat, the LP gas, the oil. I couldn't find out what was being used to just even get an estimate. The building itself being a lot of areas, right, where it's got a lot of poor insulation. There's a lot of air coming through it. We know there's a lot of gaps. And of course, the final column is, this is a 25-year note. How much interest you paying over 25 years? And obviously, when you're borrowing at the top, $200,000, give or take, you're paying more than that back in a loan, back to an interest of 25 years. It's just the way it is, unsecured loans. Can you go? So I want to jump to the pictures. And I'll take, if you have any questions, I'll answer them at the end, unless it's something you need. I'll let Brian talk after we just go through this real fast because I just don't want to tie up. Pictures. So I'll put the pretty pictures first. This is 5 years ago. Okay. 5 years ago, this is what the store looked like when they were moving in and upgrading the store. As you can see, this is the general area when you come through the door, the coolers, as you go back where the kitchen used to be, and the back kitchen behind that in the upper right, upper left. Can you go to slide 9, please? Slide 9. This is the actual building as you see it from underneath. This is all dry rot. That is actually the base of the building, and it's gone in whole sections. It's just falling apart. This is another shot further down of the same area on the upper left we're at, Brian and Christina. Another shot further down on the same area, the wood is just totally, it's dry rot. And there may be some, and I can't tell because I'm not a Terminex person or choose your bug exterminator. There are some very interesting looking holes that could be bore holes versus dry hole. I don't know. Again, the bottom left is an actual set of beams right where Brian can attest. We actually put our hands on, and actually Deb was there. And I went like this, and the whole floor to the substructure above it moved. Right, Brian?
Yes, I concur with everything you've said so far. Absolutely.
That's bad.
On the second floor, there's a concern, and I'm not trying to get people in trouble for code violations, but a safety issue. If you ask me, where I come from, this gap in the fencing between the building and the deck on the second floor is extremely dangerous, and we'd be liable for. Frankly, Larry should fix that yesterday. That is big enough that a child can get their head through and fall 2 stories down to be very potentially hurt or killed. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. That's the reality behind it. What you can't see in this picture, and you see a little, is the roofing is shot. The actual fascia boards are gone in a lot of areas. The siding clapping is actually, Brian, that's like a pressed cardboard, right? It was like layers of cardboard.
Yeah, it's just, like you said, pressed hardwood. It's a laminate wood, and it's just layers almost like MDF, but it's just deteriorating all around.
This is actually the siding. The siding is just falling apart. It almost, if you look at it, it's some kind of pressed board. Like it's almost like cardboard that's been pressed together and laminated.
They call it
Back board, and it's falling apart, back of their head. So you don't really see a lot of that. We went up on the 3rd floor. It's actually a 3rd floor cool space. Apparently it used to be a dance hall back in the day, according to Larry. What we saw was water leaking from the roof, stained all around the chimney. Larry said he had just fixed it, but there was a lot of damage to that. And the floor area was pretty rough as well. You have a lot of exposed lath, which isn't a huge big thing, except we don't know what's behind the lath by way of insulation. It is a building from 1850. We may need to get someone to go in there and make sure there's nothing that would be an issue, but by way of the old insulation that would be harmful to people. Can you please go to number 10? So number 10 is a little closer shots of what I'm talking about with the destruction. This is all at the base of the building. What I wasn't allowed to take pictures, and Brian can attest to, we went into the basement and the actual studs that are in the wall are 2x6s. That's something, and they said it was used to be a barn for horses down there. 8 out almost all of the 6 inches in multiple areas. It's just gone. You have like this much wood or less left inside there, inside the base of the walls that are holding up the 1st floor. So there's a lot of challenges. This building would honestly, in order to bring it up to fix everything, would cost as much as we pay for the building. And I may be wrong with that, but it would be darn close. Yes. You have lead tests, you have asbestos. That's what I couldn't think of. Asbestos, potential of asbestos in there. On the upstairs, he put drop ceilings in, but we don't know what's behind the drops, or what's above the drop ceiling kind of area. There's a lot of challenges. Yes. Not that I know of. We couldn't, if we wanted, we talked about bringing in inspectors because I'm someone who just builds at home. I'm like a home kind of guy who swings a hammer. Brian's a home kind of guy who swings a hammer, done a lot of projects. Witchcat Electric came in and took a look at it for us. Deb asked him to come in and bring in, Brian Steele came in and took a look at the electrical. There's a lot of concerns, even just down to the ramp that comes up from the driveway. That ramp is all cracked up and a mess. And there's a shutoff valve, so you couldn't do anything with it. Septic systems. I know I'm like beating this horse. I'm sorry, I want to give you all a good idea. Septic system is 1,000-gallon system that's designed for home. We talked about potentially one of the uses of this building being a cafe or a diner. The problem is that the leach mounted septic system right now, we were told was grandfathered in. Right. So the question and or issue, and I requested, and I haven't gotten the answer, is what are the setbacks on setbacks in Bakersfield town. Setback, for those who don't know, it's fine. When you want to build something, the setback is the distance from the furthest distance or the closest distance you could be to a property line when you put something there. Be it a shed, be it a septic system. My understanding is the setbacks, and I don't know.
Talk to the zoning administrator.
Yeah, it is up to the zoning administrator. The setbacks with the right where the property lays, I'm no waste management kind of person, but I'm not sure we could dig up and replace the septic system with the setbacks and the amount of space we have for the building. That is not an issue per se. You still need to get the septic system examined to make sure it's functional and not damaged. It has been around a long time. But it would not be, the 1,000 gallon would not be a problem if you kept it as it is today, a corner store. But if you're making this into a cafe, if you're making this into a diner, somewhere where people are going to eat at, sit down and eat, by law, we have to provide them bathroom space. That tank will not handle the capacity it's going to need to handle unless we're getting it frequently pumped, which of course costs money, several $100s, to get them to come out and pump. So they're the concerns. Electric, what Brian said, and one of the things is he said, listen, the electric is what it is. He said, the reality behind it is it depends on what you want to do. So, like I said, there's a lot of challenges. Brian, did I miss anything?
Still on mute.
There.
The only thing just to add on with the bathroom, the reason, not just with the septic issue, but the reason that the bathroom was also not available for even, emergencies for customers was that it wasn't ADA compliant just because of the size of the room. You couldn't put the bars and the wheelchair width and everything in that bathroom in there. So there would be some structural issues to even put a physical bathroom in that building. That's the only thing I think I would add.
Well, the ramp's outside, so, but to get in, but that's got to be replaced. The other thing, Brian, I forgot is after everything was said and done and we commented on the floors being rotted, the gentleman's name who is leasing the space, he turned around and took us and moved a bunch of stuff away. Showed us how the floor is soft in certain spots. I didn't even move it. We could see the floor was soft.
Yeah, it had a little bit of squish to it as we're walking through. Yes.
There's a lot of, if you took a ball, it would roll, which makes you believe that there's collapsing and then it goes around. So long story short, it may not be our building. If it is our building, know that we're going to have to invest a lot of time and money into the building to get it so that it is functional and or even for that person on the second floor still habitable if we decide that we want to lease the space to them upstairs or rent out the space. But when you go back into the financial sides of it, it's all down to grants. And what we don't get in grants, we're going to have to get in loans. And know that we already have a monthly recurring that's not under building purchase and repairs. We have a monthly recurring amount of a minimum of almost just under $3,000, not including heating.
Before we sell one hot dog.
Before you sell one hot dog, you have $3,000 a month between electric and the water, the taxes. Now, taxes may be a little better if we're classified as a 501c. I don't know how the town would handle that, as a nonprofit, but I can say that, as a business, the taxes according to Kathy and I can't think of the lady who does the treasury or still. Audrey, we're saying the other day when I spoke to them on the phone. So the other thing is know that even as a business, if you had a kitchen in the back and you were cooking, he took all the compressors out. We'd have to replace all the compressors. He's taking the air conditioning units. They're his, he said. He's taking the cooling, the air vents, he says are his. He's taking those out with him. They're leaving. So there's a lot of things to the building we would have to put back in just to use it as a pizza place or a grinder place or something like that, including the pizza ovens and all, which aren't there. So it's not your fault. They put them up for sale. So, there's a lot of things. There's a big empty cooler and it wasn't. It wasn't, they didn't put drains in the correct way, so everywhere, even that big nice cooler they have, the floor underneath, it's all suspect. It's, when you look up from underneath, it's all water stained and salt. Okay. Yes, Rosalie.
How many acres did you say? A third?
It's like a third, it's 0.31, just under a third.
So an acre is 220 by 220? And they have to have setback in the yard of 50 feet.
Is it 50?
We're talking in the village.
In the village?
Yeah, it's the village.
50.
No, it's different.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to picture
No, it's less.
if they have a mound system, if we ended up having to put a mound system in. I think that's a state thing and it has to be something.
Yeah, the state has to support the water and stuff. Yeah. Even if it is town water, we got to have that.
So do you know, Brenda, what the setback in there is for in the village?
Yeah, I can go look, I'll tell you.
Oh, no, I'm just wondering.
I'm looking at the red book right over there. My Bible is for zoning. It's,
So that does make a difference. I had a deal, so that's why I know what setback in yard and all this stuff is. So I'm just curious what, actually on a third of an acre, what it would be. Because you've got fencing on the back side,
You
you
got the
got
fence,
the post office on this side, and on the other side is.
or a telephone pole or light, electric pole on the one side. You have the, whatever that little structure is between the post office and the store.
That's belongs to the post office.
So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges with this building. So let's just pretend we didn't go with this building for a moment. The other option that's currently open in the business district is, as far as I understand, but I can't find a listing for it, is right across from the Jolly, which is that repair shop, not J&A, but the other Jones. Yeah, he's got like a for sale sign in the window or something, or had. He may have had. Problems with that building if we're serving food, and I can't find it anywhere, so it may be for sale by owner. We're gonna have to track that down. But serving food, this was a place that has car, oil, transmission fluid, grease, da, 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 da. It would take a major cleaning and then a remodeling of the whole inside,
And probably no septic.
and probably no septic.
I think it would be considered a brownfield. Actually, due to the dentistry.
Now, there, I think the Stagecoach, what's the, going down Main Street on the
Oh,
right?
B&B. Yeah.
It's a B&B that's been for sale
But
forever.
it still hasn't.
Did they finally sell it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's separated into apartments.
You go on a priority track. It's great. I love it. I would
Yeah.
still be like, let's do this.
Just saying, it's another, looking at the business district for us and what we have available as potential openings to put something in business.
Is that within the business district?
Yes.
Yeah, Stagecoach, it's called the Stagecoach, right?
Yeah.
I believe it is. It's a business. I mean, I'm assuming it may just be on the edge.
That's aside from any conversation we can have. So Rosalind's 35 feet from the center of the road, main road setback, and 5 feet on other side.
Only five.
Only 5.
5 feet, where?
5 feet from all sides, except for the front or the road side, 35 feet. Walking that space, I still don't think that's large enough for the leach mound at all, especially since you have an electric pole, over there, telephone pole is what I used to call them. I don't know. I'm not, again, a waste management, utility pole, thank you. I'm not a waste management person. Maybe there's something that they can stack high versus long. I have no idea. But that is the business in a nutshell, what we saw. Again, we're sorry, we did try to get more people through. We were fortunate enough that a couple of folks were able to come up on the second floor. They followed us up to look at the apartments. The apartments themselves look fairly nice. I mean, they're dated, but everything looked fairly solid by way of, walls and all. Floor was a little soft in spots. Third floor, like I said, was problematic, but it hasn't been touched. Any other, yes,
2 apartments?
one apartment.
1 apartment?
You can make the third floor an apartment if you
Do
want
you
it.
know what that is? For?
No, how much?
Okay,
800.
okay, so that would be, but I guess my question there then is with insurance, would the insurance cover that apartment or just, we're talking just the store?
The insurance I got a hold of was liability damages and such, and what they did is say, Yeah, what
Okay.
they said was this was what the building, or this is what Larry has now. That doesn't mean that it won't go up. God only knows, when I bought my house, Wendell was paying like $500 or $600 from Sandy Holt, God love her. I took over, it's over $2,000. So, you know, every new person, you know, they spin the screw. So
Do they still, Hull still carry the insurance on it, or they used to have?
the gentleman I spoke to said he's not sure if they still have it, but they insured it back within the last year or so. Because I was asking him, you know, and he goes, oh yeah, that was our building. He goes, I think they still insure.
John, I really appreciate all the work that you and anybody else did. I mean, this is really informative.
Mhm.
One question that comes to mind is, I think Larry said he bought it about 15 years ago. Do we have any idea how much he bought it for?
We can go back in the town
There's
records.
records.
Right.
We can ask.
Okay.
But what Larry was saying was his folks owned it. The way he made it seem, like, did he buy it from his folks? Because
He bought it with the idea that he was gonna have his snowmobile business there, and people were upset that it was no longer going to be a store. I got that story correct. Rosalie?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Brian, didn't Larry tell us that his family owned that store? He was telling us how his dad had.
I don't remember that. I don't remember hearing that. Sorry.
Sorry.
I remember hearing him talk about what his father remembered about the store,
Okay,
but not that his father owned it.
Right, I don't
okay,
think
we
he
can
did.
look,
I don't think he did.
we can roll back and look in the tax rolls. I mean, they'll tell you what it is. It's public record. It's not like.
Lemoore's had it for, when I was a little kid.
Yeah, it's getting late. We got a lot to cover still, so
Okay,
I want to guide the
Good.
discussion.
any more questions, just shoot me a Facebook messenger.
I'm gonna
Single
jump-
Bobby.
I'm gonna jump at that. I think Ben, you might have heard a whole bunch of relevant information in the last few minutes through this. And probably the biggest question I have is that on a historic registry, is that?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I doubt it.
Is that a prerequisite to working with your organization?
No. Can I just have like I do have like a couple of specific questions, and then I can like,
Please.
I don't know what to really say. I can just give you a, so are there gas pumps there?
No.
No gas pumps. And then how long has it actually been closed?
May.
May, and, I don't know if it's like public information or not, but, you know, what, was there a specific reason given? Had it been in decline for a while? Was it COVID related? You know, do you have any financial information on how the business was doing?
No,
I
but
said it was profitable.
He said it was profitable.
Okay.
Yeah, that they were burned out, but they hired.
The wife worked a full-time job at INS. He tried to get my husband to buy it, and he said he had it paid off within 3 years. So I would say it did well, but, the other piece was they had young people and trying to keep young people to be able to run the business. I think that came up the other day as we were talking about, the sustainability for people to work.
When he leased the space, he didn't buy the building.
Right.
So he's only leasing, so paying off his stuff was more of the interior, you know, the setup, the refrigerators on, not the building.
Right. Which is also what the previous person did, that there were two people in between. There was another person that had a good run, and he did not buy it either. He is buying this building up the street from what I hear, that he is looking to buy a building that he is currently using. So, yeah, the Cold Hollow Catering. So a couple of people that have been there 5 years have chosen not to buy it.
Concern?
It's that 5-year span. It's always 5 or 7 years. And that's it. You're out.
So, and I know that we've got somebody here too from Callis who has experience with a couple of different stores, but, I can just give you kind of my like broad perspective on how I've seen this work in the communities that we've worked with before. Often what's happening when we see these the margins on these places are tough, right? Like you're not going to get rich running a general store, right? And it's long hours, there's workforce challenges. I think what we've seen kind of historically is that they're multi-generational businesses. And we've kind of reached a point for whatever reason that sometimes a younger generation, in fact, doesn't want to. You know, my family ran a bookstore in Lindenville, Vermont for 40 years. And my mom was like, do you want to take over the business? I'm like, no. You know, people make different choices. And having said that, there are a lot of people out there who would love to run a general store, right? And so anyway, the point of this is that I think what we've seen a lot of is when you have kind of multi-generational owners or kind of revolving group of operators in a store, there's often a lot of deferred maintenance on the building. You know, what you're kind of describing, I think, is pretty typical of what you see in a lot of these general stores that are located in historic buildings. And so when you combine like difficult margins with deferred maintenance over a long period of time, it's just kind of a kind of gradual decline. And it can be really tough to kind of re-energize and get it back up with a, you know, as a for-profit entrepreneur, unless you have a lot of capital, and this is something you just really want to do. And so what we've seen be successful in the, you know, and there are lots of different models, but the model that we've worked with a lot of communities on is what we call a community supported enterprise, in which a nonprofit organization. Yes, sorry, it's a community supported enterprise.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, and it is different from a co-op. You know, a co-op is certainly a great model in that, but it's slightly different. The community supported enterprise model is one in which a community of stakeholders gets together and recognizes that a business or a general store or restaurant or cafe or whatever is not, it's not that it's not economically viable, it's just that you're not going to attract an entrepreneur who's going to make that initial investment to make it happen. And there's a concern about, you know, it's really a market failure in our small towns, right? And so it ends up being that a group comes together and says, we as a community value this place for all the reasons that you folks mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. In addition to, we want to be able to get a meal or you know, basic goods in our store or in our community. And so, you know, what they will do is kind of go together in a group like this and do a lot of listening to their community about how, you know, obviously the store is important to you folks, or this community gathering space is important to you folks. How important is it to everybody else in the community? Like, you know, what is an authentic listening process to your community? What would they want to see in a store? Do they want to see a store? Are they served by Jollies, or do they want something else? You know, a community will go through an authentic listening process and then, you know, decide if there's a need here, if it's worth pursuing. I think the first stop isn't to, well, let me just say, I think you listen to your community and see if there's an authentic interest in doing this. And then the next thing often we see communities do is not rush into purchasing it, but get an option agreement, right? I mean, it's probably pretty hard to raise $260,000 like that. And then, you know, I think frankly, I'm not a builder either, but having worked on a lot of these projects, you know, it's probably conservative to say that you're going to double, you know. I mean, these are the East Calais community store. That's a, you know, $1.8 million project.
Wow.
When it's all said and done. Right now, that's a larger building. I think, frankly, it's probably worse shape. They're doing a lot of stuff, but it's not small. You know, I think Albany Community Trust, they got to put at least $800,000 into the building. So it's a significant undertaking. But it's also, I think, it's important to know a community like East Calais or, you know, Albany, which is smaller than here, has been able to do it successfully. So anyway, I think what to look for is there real enthusiasm in the community for this? Do a real significant conditions assessment that you pay for, right? And you know, Preservation Trust, one of the things that we do is provide small grants to do conditions assessments on buildings, so you can really start to get some numbers around this, right? And say, you know, this is really the ballpark that we're talking about. And then I think you do like a kind of quiet fundraising campaign in your community. Like, are there people, you know, in your community who would be willing to contribute some funds to this, and kind of do that feasibility planning about other people who are willing to invest. But I think from there, that's when you get an option. And you say, you know, give us 6 months to raise this amount of money, right? And I think there's a negotiation, there's a conversation there with, you know, the current owner of the building. You know, why are they selling? What are their goals? What are they really hoping to get out of it? Is it purely financial? How do they, you know, do they just want to see something positive happen in the community? I think that's an ongoing, frankly, kind of quiet dialogue that a group of people have, and work out that negotiation. You can come to an option agreement. then you can really start to raise money. And so like, I'll give the other example of East Callis. That's pretty much how this worked, right? That, people were concerned about this store that had closed being sold to the lowest bidder and maybe not being activated as the community space that people were hoping for. Community group got together, listened to their community, recognized that there was enthusiasm. The Preservation Trust, one of the services that we provide is acting as a fiscal agent, which means that, if you just started a Kickstarter fund or Kickstarter campaign for a project like this, they raise the money for purchase, none of those deductions or donations that people make are tax deductible, right? So working with a fiscal agent allows you to, it's kind of like we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and serving as a fiscal agent, we can lend that status to an organization as long as the mission is aligned, and this is within our mission. So the idea is that we can accept donations on your behalf that are tax deductible, and then we just hold money and give it to you as needed. In addition to that, it allows you to be able to apply for grants. For most grants, you need not all, but most of them, you need to either be a municipality or a nonprofit to apply for state or federal grants. And so, if this was a thing, you folks would need, if you were to pursue the community supported enterprise model, you'd have to form your own independent 501c3, right? But in the interim, while you're raising money, that's a process that takes a minimum of 6 months, more likely a year. In the interim, potentially serve as a fiscal agent for you, help you raise money, help you do the assessments, help you do the feasibility plan, all those kinds of stuff. While you pursue the 501c3 status, we can help you with the legal fees and services to be able to achieve that status. And then, the world is kind of open to apply for state, federal grants, tax credits, all the kinds of resources that you would want to get. There are lots of different models. We work with a lot of different people. You can get a lot of different approaches to how to do this. And I really try hard not to tell people, don't do that, but I'm going to do it just one time. For business, what we have seen is for a business like this to be successful, you can't have debt. You have to have as little debt as possible.
Right.
That taking out a loan is really tough. The margins are so small. The way this model works in other places is the 501c3 exists so that they can raise that tax deductible donations. They can apply for the grants that a private business can't. They renovate, they purchase, they renovate the building, they get it up and running, and then they say, who wants to run a store, right? And they lease it out to basically what's happening right now, right? Like somebody had leased out that building, but instead of leasing it from a private landlord with, either limited resources or not an appetite for investing in the building, you've got a 501c3, a group of community individuals who all they care about is, that place be a vibrant community hub. And so your goal is to ensure that the person leasing that space is successful. And the way to do that is to make it as cost effective as possible for them by charging as little as you possibly can. And the way to do that is not to incur debt. So that's kind of my advice. I got to tell you, I am incredibly optimistic about the future of Vermont Villages. You've got a great group of committed people here who are excited. This is a fantastic community. I absolutely know that you could do this because people are doing it, not just across Vermont, across the country. I really believe that this is not the only way, but a significant way in which rural communities are going to thrive in the future is through these kind of community supported models. It's a long road. It's a long road. Albany's General Store burned 8 years ago. It was a 5-year project. That was a burned building with gas pumps, a septic issue that was a disaster. It was a long, long haul, but they did it. East Callis, it's going to be fantastic. It's a $1-point-something million project that's taking years, and they're on it. They're working really hard. The Putney General Store, which we helped the local historical society save their general store through this community support enterprise model. They spent all this time renovating the store, years, raising money, renovating the store. And then, you know, I think something like 6 months after it reopened, it was burned by an arsonist.
No,
And they started over and did the whole thing over again. And it's there. It's, you know, it's an operating store in the hub of their community. So, you know, you've got a building that is here. It's, you know, I'm sure it is in rough shape. I've seen a lot worse. It was presumably somewhat profitable until COVID happened. You got people that care about it. There's a lot of recipes here for success, but you're going to need commitment. You're going to need strategy. You're going to need partners. You're going to need to tap every single resource that you can think of, like Franklin County Industrial Corporation. Tim Smith needs to be down here talking to folks. You need to talk to, you know, the Regional Planning Commission about, you know, applying for grants. You talk to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, you know, the State Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And there's 15 different funding partners that you could be working with on this. And, you know, our job at Preservation Trust, we think of ourselves as being in it for the long game, right? Like that we like to be here. I wish I was here at the first meeting, but you know, I'm here at the third, right? Like we want to be here at the 50th meeting, right? Like, and that's how long it can take, you know. But what's cool about where I work is that it's like every step along the way, from the first one of like, how do you get a community engagement survey together, right? Or what does an option agreement look like? Or who can do a conditions assessment? Like we can help you with all of those things. How do you get a 501c3 status? You know, who do I talk to at Northern Borders Regional Commission to pull down a grant? Like we can help with all of those kinds of steps on the way, all the way to like, what does an RFP look like when you want to hire an operator? So there's definitely resources here to do, but it really comes down to like a gut check of, is this the direction we want to pursue? And how does our community really feel about this? Like, and how do we know that, right? Like, how do we know that there's support here to do it?
Jamie, you've listened to us for a few minutes now. Can you give us the on the ground perspective of people who've actually done this or are doing it?
Totally. I echo everything he just said. I'll just give a little rundown of the two projects here in Calais. And hearing about the building, I know because I've sat in the room you're sitting in, it probably feels pretty daunting. But it's totally doable. So the Maple Corner store we started maybe 3.5 years ago. And that store never closed. It had a store operator. It was doing well. There's a little bar and cafe in the back. But it had been on the market for 2 years. And a few people looked at buying it who wanted to do other things other than having a store. So a community group got together and said, we can't let that happen. And we went with a very different model than we were just discussing. We went with a pretty privately funded model. So we became, instead of a 501c3 nonprofit, we became a C Corp. We became a for-profit corporation. And instead of getting donations, we got investors. And so we sold shares, and we have a total of 200 shareholders who collectively bought shares were $500 a piece. They collectively bought about $580,000 worth of shares. And so some people bought 1 share, some people bought 45 shares. And we set it up so that each shareholder gets 1 vote in electing the board of directors, no matter how many shares they own. But so our fundraising was 100% private investors, no grants, we just didn't go that route. I'm not saying that was the best choice. It's the choice we made at the time. It worked for us. We raised just under $600,000 in about 1.5 years, purchased the building and did a bunch of renovations. And instead of sort of leasing it out to a store operator, the board of directors of the store oversees the operation. So we hire a general manager who makes a lot of the decisions, but the board is still the governing body of the store. So it gives the community members that extra bit of say of, no, actually, you're our employee. We do really want there to be prepared food there, even if you don't want to do, sort of have a little more say in exactly how it operates. And then the East Calais store, as you heard a little bit earlier, they became their own nonprofit, the East Calais Community Trust. And they initially raised the smaller pool of money. They needed about $200,000 to buy the building, and they bought the building. And then that sort of launched their bigger capital campaign, and they ended up raising, they're still going. I think they raised about 300 or 350,000 in personal individual contributions, and then so far about 1.2 or 1.3 million in grants and other bigger funding. And as you heard there, it's going to end up about a $1.8 million project. They're building, I think it has 3, maybe even 4 apartments. I think 3 apartments, and then the big downstairs store. But so they're going more the community project route that you heard about earlier, and have found a lot of benefits in that and a lot more grant money. But I think both avenues have some merit and merit some discussion. I know in Maple Corner we had many hours of discussions on the pros and cons of different models. But in the end, you just sort of have to decide what's best in your town. And I would echo what was said earlier about no debt being important. I know there was talk in the initial presentation of potential different debt loads, and that was both of our stores, like day one decision was, for this to be sustainable, we need to find a way to do it debt free. And I think for these small general stores, that's a pretty critical decision to limit your overhead. Because that's often what drives these little stores out of business, is when there's too much overhead and debt. Especially winter slow season or whatever slow season gets really hard. But you all are well on the way.
Thanks, Jamie. Great insight. Appreciate it. We'll have you back sometime as we get deeper.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll have you back to touch base with us.
Yeah, I may jump out at some point. I've had a long day, but nice to meet you all, and definitely be in touch. And I'm happy to give any insight or answer any questions about how we did things.
Thank you so much. All right. It's after 7 o'clock, and none of people staying here forever. We had a point where we were going to talk about committees. I think we may want to rethink that for
That's fine. I mean, we have people for every committee at this point, except for a legal committee, which Brenda brought up that we are going to need as we get closer to the actual planning process and everything else. So we're going to need somebody to kind of look at all of this.
And then is that a part of the benefit of having you guys on board with us in the planning part of that?
Yeah, we can help you however, whatever help you need. For East Calais and for Elmore, we provided, we were able to provide some small grants to help with legal fees, both around the option agreement, and then later, that is something that we can help with. Also with bylaws
can we rely on you to give us some frameworks, go forward basis of options we can look at?
For sure. I think the best thing that I can do is actually, yes, to say that. I think whatever question you have, like, we can try and help you find the right person to talk to and the right answer or different options to pursue. The best thing though that we can do is we get a really big network of folks who've done this, right? So I mean, like, hearing from Jamie is like fantastic. She's done it, right? But like, we can get you Kristen from Albany or Mark Mahali from Callis or Trevor Baum from Elmore, folks that Lisa Bacasian, actually our board chair, she did it in Putnam. So there's a whole circle of folks that have done it. I get emails all the time of like, hey Ben, we're ready to look for our operator. Do you have an RFP that you can share with us? And then I like send out an email to 3 different people and then they kind of crowdsource it, right? So there's a lot of different options. And I should mention too, Jamie was really interesting talking about Maple Corners about the kind of cooperative model. One of the first general stores that we actually got involved in is one that we're still involved with is Pierce's store in Shrewsbury, near Rutland, which was a general store for well over 100 years. And then Marjorie Pierce actually left it to us in her will. She owned the store, ran it for years and years, and really wanted to, the store had closed, and she wanted to see it continue as a community hub, or to see it be a store again. And so she actually left us the store and an endowment of the Vermont Community Foundation to help maintain it. And in that case, the community, we put out an RFP for an operator, and in that case, a group of folks got together and said they really wanted to form a cooperative that, for the reasons that Danny was talking about, and that's been 10 years now they've been using that cooperative model. We still own the building. They manage the business through a cooperative fashion. So there are lots of different models.
And I think one of the things you first mentioned was a community needs assessment.
Yeah.
Would you point us to be the first focus of what we really
I think so.
have to do?
I think it's really about sending out a community survey, and not just in one way, right? Like, I don't know if people here use Front Porch Forum or what they use, but find a survey and find lots of different ways to send it out to people in the community and really get some feedback, right? And then when you start to see numbers like, 4 out of 5 people in Bakersfield really like the store, right? Or wish that there was more community hub. Like, you start to get some indications of, there really is energy and enthusiasm about this. And you want to, this is one of those things where that like proverb of like, you want to go fast, go alone, and you want to go far, go together. This is an example of that. It's like right from the beginning, you're engaging your entire community about like, what is our collective vision for a store like this? You're just gonna be, to be honest, like those are your donors, those are your customers.
And I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, when I was looking at the East Palace website, the link that was sent, I was impressed with a lot of the events going on that were not necessarily fundraisers, but they brought community together. And, the Christmas boxes and the turkeys and the things that I was like, there's a lot of stuff here. I hear you completely, because in this community, sometimes it's that group of people that does one thing. If we don't have a broader group of people, I don't see how this can happen. Brenda did a great job of putting it out there. And this is a good number, but this is not Bakersfield. So what does the larger group want? And I know there's a feasibility study going on right now with Brigham. And, there's a lot of stuff happening there. So people need to find out.
I gotta tell you, actually, that was the first thing I thought about when I came in here, was knowing about stuff that's going on with Brigham Academy, how close the store actually is to that. You just thought, wow, there's a really interesting opportunity here to leverage a couple of really cool things happening in time. But I think the truth is, when you see these groups, it's a small committed group of individuals who work really hard for years to make it happen. But it's like, you can't do it without that broader support, right? Like if people feel like, oh, that's their thing, that's their store project that they're working on, it's a doubt.
Quick question I've got too is, a store like that doesn't rely on just the business from in town or town residents. Is it advisable to go to adjacent towns to do a needs assessment as well for people who drive through here. And this is a commuter train.
I think that's a great idea. You know, and, yeah, I think that'd actually be really interesting to think about what is your kind of catchment area, right? And make sure that you're surveying people in that entire catchment area and come up with a strategy for doing that. You know, I think if it's of interest, what I'd like to do is, again, kind of go back to the different groups that we've worked with and get some survey examples from them of what they did. I have to say, like, you guys have a fantastic regional planning commission, you know, and they could be a really great resource in helping you think about your catchment area, maybe doing some economic modeling, and helping you come up with a strategy for getting that out there.
We actually have someone in the room who has successfully gotten the community together for a while, who is having a Halloween party at your property.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Our community, how do you get them to come to your house?
I mean, you know that these people, like, what works? You know, we just hosted the regional commission, planning commission at the field. It was better than dinner.
So how do you make stuff happen in this town? What do you think?
I don't know, it's word of mouth and just, I start with kids.
Yeah.
Always. I had a friend in Swanton post about her house.
I'm like, how does she know about this? She's in Swanton.
But
Word of mouth.
I don't ask anybody for anything. I just tell people what we're doing and people want to be a part of it. And they like supporting what I have to offer.
I can see it now as being the first business enterprise like this is run by kids.
You're very enterprising.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I tell you.
You know, and we are 501c3, and so they don't recognize that. And I don't know, I've been doing it since May of '99.
And if you think about it, McDonald's has had that philosophy with Happy Meals for decades, so it works, it definitely works, and I don't know if it's appropriate for this model.
I'll have the kids work.
Well, I start with kids, and then they tell the needs, they talk about what they want. I mean, when the teen center was here, we had something down there, and they wanted to be with us versus in the teen center. And they would talk to the parents, and the parents would support, you know, what we were doing versus, you know, I mean, it wasn't competitive, but it was, the kids are your future. We're talking 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds.
Well,
I'm on the next generation because it's 99, so we're on the ones, their parents now are in the 20s and 30s.
So while I have everybody here, we're talking about committees, then, can I put everyone on the committee for now? I can tell you what we have. Can I put you on the outreach committee? Me? Yeah. Yeah, just, sure, okay, thank you, okay.
Sure.
If you want to be-
Lifetime commitment, by the way.
If you want to be on the marketing or the PR committee, please raise your hand and tell me your name. You can be on probably up to 2, 3, 2.
Well, it's self-regulated.
As many as you're gonna
If you get too
actually
busy.
work on, yeah. So.
And I think Ben just brought up one committee that we didn't have, and that is a needs assessment committee.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we have too many committees or we have the need to be into.
I would encourage you to honestly, I would encourage you to not have too many committees. You know, like an assessment thing, that can.
Does that go under legal? Or not really, or funding, or?
I think it's really kind of like map out your process, right? And focus on, like, you know, what are the short term and long term, and, you know, to me, I don't want to, you know,
Yes,
but, like,
I know you do.
all right, well, I mean, I think it really starts with that community service, right? Just like, I mean, do you need a legal committee right now? Not really. You need you know, you need to make sure that this is a thing in this community, right? I think
Yeah,
that's. what
so,
she did.
yeah, outreach is a good one, yeah. So outreach is.
Just wondering, I know that, I can't remember the name. Nothing wrong, right? The husband flies the plane, the rule.
Oh, Sarah Jo.
Thank you, Sarah. She had mentioned back when COVID first started, possibly being able to send things in the mail out, and how there was a potential, I mean, because we can't know who it is or anything. I don't know what she did, so I can talk to her about finding out how to maybe send surveys out in the mail.
And I know she's deep within the community with respect to church and school and kids and stuff.
Yeah, she did indicate she loves the concept of this project, but she wasn't in a place. So maybe with a limited task that had an end.
If I just asked her,
I
what
don't
did you
think it hurts
do
to
at
ask.
the fires, and she just told me, and she was.
No, and that's one part, electronics is another part of Front Page Forum. With Front Page Forum, we can cover all adjacent counties and towns, so that's good.
All fronts.
Absolutely.
What about connections that, say, the post office and the library, places that people are frequenting, where you can get people to sign up for newsletters like MailChimp and things?
I think all those things are viable. We need to explore every option and gather as much data from as many people as possible. We're gonna get negative, we're gonna get positive, we're gonna all have to look at these and figure out where that is.
Does anybody know who it is?
Sure, We live next door to the library.
Oh, nice. Would you be willing to go over and see if you could talk to them about getting a survey out, because they're gonna have a mailing list.
Well, I think that you need to determine what the survey is going to continue outreach.
Right?
The outreach is one piece, but you can utilize Survey Monkey as one of them online. I don't know how many years I've used Survey Monkey. Right, where you just give a URL and a mailing or whatever, and ask people to go out and answer questions, because what you really need is them to come back. A lot of folks, if you're doing mailers to folks are generally, the easiest road is the one they want to take.
Yeah.
Mailers is one way to get it, but that requires them to, unless you're sending self-addressed envelopes back with it. A lot of folks are going, well, yeah, okay. I mean, how many times you got something in there, and you break the bin?
Well, that's why there's gonna be multiple routes too, like, you know,
Right.
people, internet's gonna be easier, some people, it's gonna be easier, like, you know, depending on the situation. You just have
If you
to-
use front porch and you give the URL,
Yeah,
you know, you want, the biggest thing is the folks who don't want to use the internet. And you've got to be able to accommodate them
right.
and somehow get the answers from them. That may not be them checking boxes and sending it back, it may be a phone that they just, you know, they'll call and go, yeah, this is what I want.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Now, the problem is, you've got to pick some form of disposable number, because you don't want to put your number out to all the surrounding communities, and say, hey, you can call.
They're called ringmate numbers. You can get it.
Yeah.
Right, so, exactly.
Brenda had a really good idea before, and it was, I know it was just kind of in passing, but you just said, I want to carve pumpkin. And what I was really thinking on a bigger scale was if we started holding community, for lack of a better word, bonding opportunities where we were getting people's mailing information and talking to people about what we were interested in, saying, hey, isn't this nice? This happened because we came together as a community. You know, like, oh, these pumpkins that you're carving came from the Hulls down the street. Did you know that they sell them there? And then all of a sudden, people were going, oh, these are things that we have in our community. Why don't we know about them? We want to know more about them.
Same thing, when we do our the select board meetings, and I'll give you an example of the paving that happened here this year. You know, that's been a 12-year project. You know, they held over a half a dozen public meetings. You know that most of them were attended by nobody. They were advertised in every venue they could. Think about it. Now we got people who are complaining because they weren't part of the process. So again, with all due respect, we can put it out there, and it's the awareness. We have to make a big bang. We have to draw notice and attention, and we have to use every resource we can to get information. Is it going to be perfect? Nothing's going to be perfect.
I mean, I was at the open house just before the first meeting at school, and I had a flyer that Sharon Evans had put out because I didn't want to develop one, and she offered. And I had conversations with people, I don't know how many families I talked to. I kind of was trying to target people that I knew I had seen going to the store a lot of times. And everybody was very positive about it.
Yeah.
But you know, not one person showed up here
Of course not.
after all of that. So I'm a little like, it's a lot of energy.
There's a lot of energy, but you did mention something really good. We have school board meetings that we can attend. We can hand papers out to people there. You can turn these in before you leave. Any type of civic organization that meets, whether it's the Lions up in Enosburg Falls or the kids down here, take this home, have your parents go out. Use it for a ticket to get back into the next event. I don't care, whatever it is.
What about having, a table at the next church supper if that happens? Or what about having a booth at the 4th of July celebration? where we're gonna
Don't
have
ever-
a million
Did
people?
we just miss a chicken thing?
I think there was a chicken thing. I should think of it.
You
But
can go
I
back.
think we just need to just start meeting everywhere and then, oh, those are co-op people, and then it's not, those are co-op people, it's everybody.
Yeah, we want people to say them again.
I wanted to interject something. I'm actually trying to work with Rosalie now because I have been wanting a community thing together. And I'm actually developing a little list of things we can do at her pavilion. And one of the things I did want to do is I wanted to send out something to all the locals saying, I wanted to do like a craft fair and a farmer's market and to bring your stuff. So what better way for everybody to know each other and get to know each other? And I could bring in a bunch of people as well. So, I mean, I'm feeling the same thing and I want to utilize her pavilion while it's here. And maybe I collect a little bit of money to help pay her taxes. You know what I mean? Because she's got to pay and.
So you have to be aware of what's already in the community because like we were doing chicken pie dinners and then the historical society started doing them. We stopped doing them because we said it is stupid to have 2 chicken pie dinners 2 weeks apart.
Right.
And
I don't think so.
Can't-
So is there any sort of community forum, even like a board that has stuff that's happening anywhere?
well, like the historical society, except for last year, has a craft fair in November. I don't know if they're doing it this year,
No.
but okay, that's good to know.
But
Because
you
we
know-
had done one as well. So I'm just saying, that group and knowing what's happening as a community is a really important thing. I applaud you for doing that, but it's sort of like you gotta know what else is happening in town.
Absolutely, but I was also bringing in all kinds of outsiders in. Like,
Yeah,
I've
that's
already
what they did.
reached out to people that are like, sign me up, one instance, and so I'm,
And I think the key thing was the craft fair that Suzanne was talking about was not once a year.
right,
It was
and,
like in spring.
and then in the fall,
and
and,
fall craft
and
fair,
so
it'd be
that,
several times.
yeah, and so then you could bring, you know, if you do canning, great. I don't, I'd love to buy what you have, and this is a good way for me to get to know you, and if you've got all kinds of produce that, you know, let's face it, at the end of the year, I had like a bazillion tomatoes I didn't need, you know? I just feel it's different ways that we can get together, and I've actually got a little list of things I'd like to propose to Rosalie and try to get the community together.
All right, I want to,
Like this.
I want to go in that direction. I want to know what she said. So, yeah, so in addition to the town green, the Conservation Commission has the town park, which is not the town green, the town park, which has a bulletin board, which you can post in, but I'm part of the Conservation Commission. I didn't even know about that. So it's the town park, and then we also have the community town trails that we set up as well. But there's grills, that we have a porta potty through the summer that we rent, for the bikers coming through. And we've had musicians come and do concerts. We've had kids do bake sales when they're doing concerts. So that is another venue that you can look into that I know we would be more than welcome to having additional events there.
Ben, we don't want, we're going an hour and a half. I know some of us could talk all night, and some of us probably will. What I would invite us to do is set an agenda for our next meeting of doing our needs assessment. Then if you can get information that has been used before as a question format for other towns, and we can springboard off of that. We can develop the questionnaire and we can look at where it's going to be marketed or sent or how we're going to distribute it. And I really think that might take a bulk of a meeting to hammer through that. So,
just one other resource too that I would offer, I can send you a link to it, is the Vermont Council on Rural Development. It's a different nonprofit organization, but it does community visioning, community projects, and things that helps communities build consensus around projects and moving forward. They do a lot of community engagement work, and they actually have a handout that I can send you that's community engagement strategies around surveys, right? So, I mean, all the ideas that you folks are talking about are totally spot on. This is like a checklist of, did you send them home and take a backpack? Did you, put them at the, so I think that's kind of like my to-do list, is I'll send you those two things, both kind of maybe a sample survey and then strategy for sending it out.
I'm going to throw a big curveball in all this. Next to the fire department is approximately half an acre or 3/4 of an acre of open land that used to hold a hardware store. And I believe it is owned by the town. I know the town would love to get rid of it, but it would be a build from scratch. It would be start with digging a hole, putting a cellar underneath it and building up from there. Would it be appropriate to talk about that as an option? Why not? Why not?
Everything's like, the store building that's there now would probably be almost.
Built from scratch.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly correct. And if you don't have, let's say the town has incentive to turn another piece of property into a tax stream, and they get to sell it and they get to be part of that development. Literally, my thoughts over here, if it wasn't on the historical register, was to raise the whole thing. Just start.
Well, I'm contractually obligated. Well, I get things for a reason. I just have to say, like, if you folks, whatever you decide to do, I'm here to help. But, at the beginning of the conversation, right, like, whenever people say, like, it's not home if it's not homemade,
Yeah.
right? Or a Jolly store is not the same, something more personal, right? Like, this place has been a store for, I don't know how long? Like, a long, long time, right? Longer than, there's something there.
Absolutely.
And I think, like, I'm gonna pontificate for just a second. When you see communities that are vibrant in Vermont, like, I travel all over the state, grew up in a small town in the Northern Kingdom that is not particularly vibrant. Like, you can see the difference. You can see the difference, right? And the difference is a sense of place. And people say, this is home. This place is different from Everywhereville, USA. There's something unique about this. And I would argue that it has something to do with the roots of a place, right? People come and go, buildings stay, right? And there's something about a building like that connects a community and brings people together. And yes, a brand new steel building can do that too. But I would just, it's not the same.
Well, before Dollar General moves in, it's all.
Well, yeah, we can end up that.
But it's interesting that the two people that were there for 5 years, that is at $1,500 a month and $18,000 a year, $90,000, but still chose not to buy the building. That to me is worth just listening. And it's ironic that the other person, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but the other person that had the building for 5 years is buying the other building up the street. Why? Why isn't he buying this building?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the building just flows better for certain businesses too, so maybe.
I think we have an advantage, which is if we can get the community behind us, it's not just one business, one family, it's all of us. And we have a vested interest, and I think that's why it's different, because, we have different funding options, and we have so many people in this community who have these skill sets that can contribute in a way that just one business operator.
Well said, Gary. Well said, Gary. So I would like to set an agenda for the next meeting, so I don't have to be straining at 4 p.m. to figure out an agenda, and that would be to get together for, meets. We'll work off of what Ben sends us, and I'll distribute that to the list of folks that we've got and post it up on our Facebook page, and go from there and develop the questions that we want to ask, and develop the marketing strategy to get that out. And it can be, so it doesn't have to be all at once. It can be a layered approach. It can be a deliberate approach. Take the low hanging fruit first, go after the next, and the next, and the next, and the next tier. And by the time we get around to springtime, we're still assessing what we're doing, because we're not going to be doing anything seriously to the structure until Montague's moved their stuff out of there. We can't even get anybody in there to structurally check it, assess it with what may be available to us through different agencies. So there's a lot of work that can go on outside of committee work. And part of it is what Ben and I will develop and bring back to everybody here electronically and hopefully by mail.
I have one last question, which is, the last time we met, we did kind of present what our meeting was on the group and kind of on the Facebook group and said, hey, this is what happened during our meeting. What message do we want to present as a committee on this Facebook group that we have going forward that is both, like positive, but also not showing our hands?
I agreed. I think stating that we need to move to a common ground of assessment of the community, which is going to be the people who support this effort.
Well, aren't we going to do upload these Zoom meetings to a location like we are with the select board? So
Absolutely.
people who couldn't make it this evening will have the ability to view exactly what transpired or read it.
And for how many people are on the Facebook site?
I believe we have, we have quite a good amount.
There's over 70.
So we've got a good
88.
response.
We have 88 members.
Yes.
And it's growing every day.
I don't understand why you're doing it.
No, I think this is open and full disclosure. We need to follow public meeting laws and be mindful of both the folks that can access this through the internet and people who will go back and look at what we said. So I think that those are important things.
I would encourage you to be like, good news. There's lots of people who are excited about the potential opportunity for real. Assess and look for, more community champions who want to be a part of the effort.
Review our
I
notes.
like that community champion.
That's what it says. Review our notes, look at our online discussion, and become active. That'll be the first place the survey goes out anyway. So we can gauge response from that, and we can extend it easily in the company forum. We've got the Bakersfield Town Forum. We also have there's two of them. We can work within those. So I'm excited. If anybody wants to say anything else, you got 30 seconds. No, I'm just
Are you
So, and I will say that on the select board, they are interested in this, and I'm looking at organizing the ARPA fund. I'm the ARPA administrator as well. So having informational meetings about ARPA and what that might mean to development of infrastructure and helping us along is also part of the discussion. One of the earliest people said, how do I town money going into that? I can guarantee you, there won't be town money, there may be taxpayer money, but town money will go.
Should we do our next meeting 2 weeks?
You want to do 2 weeks or want to do a month?
I thought we were talking about.
I was talking about monthly, making it a regular, second Wednesday. I've already got the Facebook for November. Does that work for everybody? Please, let's not hold off the discussions, because if somebody wants to enter a forum discussion or say, hey, tonight we're going to talk about this, and as many people want to move on to it, can. We can take advantage of the electronics. We really can and should to communicate, intra-communicate. And we've been doing a good job. And I think carbon copying people on stuff that we're doing is important. And I will download everybody what Ben and I discussed, keep that open and transparent as possible.
Can I just ask a logistical question? What is our relationship with the Vermont community? Sorry, yeah, and how, I mean,
Honestly,
you sound like you have an amazing wealth of resources and information that we can tap into. What are the relationships?
this is what we do. It's like, I have the best job in Vermont.
Okay.
Like, I do, like, that's, my predecessor was there for 40 years, and I worked with him for years at other places, and he would always say, oh, no, I have the best job in Vermont. And I have it now, and it's because, this is what we do. We go around small towns and we help people do things that they want to do. So we do have a lot of different resources. I mean, there'll come a time, right, when you're ready, if you want, like, well, we can talk about significant grant funding that we have access to. We make grants to help team implementation projects, but right now, our relationship is however we can be helpful, we want to.
And I think bringing in, other Franklin County agencies is gonna be critical, because there are several, I can think of right off the top of my head, that will be, right in league with what they're doing. And they all have routes to funding and assistance and help, and they've done this too. They've done this too.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think of it because, well, another really good example is Richford, right? When the grocery store was in danger of closing there, it's Preservation Trust helped a little bit, but, Franklin County Industrial Corporation, the Regional Planning Commission, Mon Council, I mean, it's all hands on deck kind of thing.
Tim Sol will keep this up. He will be really helpful. And, we don't even have to go out of county, we're gonna be inundated with resources that can help us. Once we stretch into the state or federal, those are huge as well. I mean, you got it. Yeah.
From the accounting side of the house, is there some fees or something that would, now you're just.
We're a nonprofit organization supported by private philanthropic dollars. People value what we do and support it. So, yeah, we don't, yeah, that's really good. In fact, we don't charge you folks, right? And like when I was talking before about serving as a fiscal agent, that's a service that we provide. We don't charge for that. It's just something, it's just one other service we do. So we're funded through private donations and people who care about from Vitality of Vermont. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah, no, thank you.
That sounds good. Meeting adjourned?
Motion carried.
Right on.
It's a lot. It's really fun.